emergency potential failure watch at the Lake Livingston Dam.
Lake Livingston Dam after the Trinity River Authority of Texas advised people to be aware of a potential dam failure.
The Lake Livingston Dam, just 70 miles north of Houston, is at risk of collapsing.
Livingston Dam is Texas's largest, and in 2025, satellites caught it doing something it was never supposed to do. One end sinking, the other rising. Engineers call that differential movement. Regulators call it preliminary. But here's what nobody is calling it: fixable. So what exactly is happening beneath that embankment? And why does the scale of it leave every agency with the power to act completely without a plan? Livingston Dam runs 2.5 miles across the Trinity River in East Texas, and most Houstonians have never seen it, and almost certainly could not find it on a map. Built across the Trinity River roughly 75 miles north of Houston, the dam stands 90 feet tall and impounds Lake Livingston, the primary municipal reservoir for one of the largest cities in the United States. Everything downstream of that embankment, every glass of water, hospital four-line, fire hydrant serving Houston's east and southeast reaches, traces back to this one structure. What makes this alarming is not the dam itself, it is what the dam feeds into. 2 purification plants, a combined throughput of 806 million gallons per day, a metro population pushing 7 million people, zero redundancy at comparable scale. There is no second reservoir waiting in reserve. If Livingston Dam stops functioning, the infrastructure to substitute for it does not exist. The question sitting underneath all of this, quietly, for decades, is how confident engineers are that the dam will keep functioning. Livingston Dam is classified as an earthfill embankment. Compacted soil and clay, not poured concrete. At 2.5 miles wide, it is the largest dam in Texas by embankment length, which sounds impressive until researchers start asking why that construction method was chosen and what trade-offs came with it. That answer starts in the 1960s, with a city running out of water and a bond deal. Houston in the early 1960s was expanding faster than its water supply could follow. Demand was outpacing every existing reservoir and aquifer the region could draw from. Something large had to be built fast. The Trinity River Authority, a state agency with power to issue revenue bonds, funded the project entirely through those bonds. Brown & Root, the Houston engineering firm with deep Texas infrastructure experience, took on the design. Construction ran from 1966 through 1969. Engineers chose earthfill embankment over concrete, tightly packed soil rather than a solid cast wall. Earthfill was cheaper at this scale, faster to raise across a 2.5-mile span, and required no specialized concrete pour infrastructure across difficult terrain. But earthfill has a vulnerability concrete does not. Water can find pathways through compacted material over time, working invisibly along grain boundaries, eroding channels the surface never reveals. Engineers knew this from day one and designed for it with internal drainage systems. Whether those systems are still performing as designed, decades later, under a structure now in measurable motion, is a different question entirely. Concrete fails visibly. Cracks propagate outward. Surfaces small. Inspectors find them. But compacted soil fails from the inside, silently, incrementally, through a process called piping erosion. Water under pressure finds the path of least resistance along grain boundaries deep within the embankment. It carries particles outward. The channel widens. Nothing on the surface changes, until it does, catastrophically. What makes this especially dangerous is how piping interacts with a second mechanism, differential settlement. As the ground beneath the dam shifts unevenly, one foundation zone compressing faster than another, the embankment doesn't move as a single rigid unit, it stretches. Microfractures develop between sections. Those fractures become preferential pathways for the exact erosion process described above. This is why a dam can appear structurally sound during a surface inspection, while catastrophic failure is already progressing beneath. By the time visual evidence appears, the internal process is often far advanced. That is the scientific framework behind everything that follows. Because when satellites detected that Livingston Dam's northern and southern sections are moving in opposite directions simultaneously, they weren't describing a curiosity. They were describing exactly the conditions piping erosion requires to begin. As Rita pushed inland, it drove sustained wave action against the upstream face. That riprap is not decoration. It is the first and only physical barrier between open water and exposed fill. When the storm passed, engineers surveyed the damage. 11,000 linear feet of riprap had been stripped away, leaving bare earthen embankment exposed to the reservoir. The dam's outer layer is chainmail. Rita pulled 11,000 feet of that chainmail off in a single event. The response was immediate. The pool was drawn down 4 feet to reduce hydraulic pressure against the vulnerable section, and FEMA backed a $9.6 million repair program to restore the armor. But under conditions the designers had anticipated. A Gulf hurricane, the outer protection failed faster and at greater scale than engineering assumptions accounted for. The embankment itself held, the armor did not. That distinction matters enormously. Armor can be replaced. What the satellites would later detect is something no repair budget can simply restack. Here is the question that changes everything. How do engineers inspect the interior of a 2.5-mile earthfill embankment for movement happening at the scale of millimeters each year? Ground crews walking the crest cannot feel it. Visual inspections catch surface anomalies, not sub-foundation drift. For decades, that limitation meant certain categories of structural change were effectively invisible. Then came INSAR. Satellites bouncing microwave pulses off the Earth's surface and comparing the returning signals across months, then years, building a portrait of ground movement with millimeter-level precision. What the 2025 preliminary study, reported by Live Science in January 2026, found at Livingston Dam was not the uniform settling engineers designed for. The northern section is sinking at roughly 8 millimeters per year. That is about 1/3 of an inch annually. The southern section is simultaneously rising, both ends moving in opposite vertical directions across a span of 2.5 miles. Not a uniform drop. The whole structure could absorb together. An asymmetric tilt, one side pulling down while the other pushes up. The mechanical consequence of that geometry is shear stress, concentrated at the embankment joints, the seams where different sections of fill material meet. Those are precisely the locations most vulnerable to the internal piping erosion described earlier, the process that hollows a dam from inside long before any surface signal appears. It is worth being precise here. These results are preliminary and have not yet cleared peer review. A single study, one satellite dataset, no independent corroboration from TCEQ or the Army Corps of Engineers on record. That caveat matters. But here is what also matters. The movement the study detected is exactly the kind ground inspection was never designed to catch. The satellites caught something ground inspection was designed to miss. But what does that mean when the next stress test isn't theoretical? It's scheduled by rainfall. Here is the architectural reality that makes the satellite finding more than an abstract engineering concern. Lake Livingston was never built to buffer floods. Its 12 tainter gates, those curved steel panels that regulate outflow, function essentially as a valve, not a reservoir. When the Trinity River rises, the gates open to match it. When the river surges, the lake surges. There is no meaningful storage capacity held in reserve to absorb an incoming peak and release it gradually downstream. The dam mirrors the river rather than managing it. A flood control reservoir holds water back deliberately, absorbing the surge and releasing it slowly once the peak passes. Livingston cannot do that. The design was always water supply, not flood mitigation. Those are fundamentally different engineering mandates, and Livingston was built strictly for one of them. So what happens when a major flood event arrives at an embankment already under differential stress? The operational cushion that might otherwise exist, drawdown capacity, staged gate management, controlled pre-release, is structurally absent at the scale needed. The 12 gates can move water, but they cannot reshape the hydraulic load a major surge places against an embankment already experiencing asymmetric settlement. The Trinity River corridor is not a low rainfall environment. It is not a question of whether another major weather event will stress this system. The question is, what condition the embankment will be in when that moment arrives? That is what makes the geography of this dam the next layer of the problem. Here is what satellite data alone cannot capture. The ground itself, across the Trinity River corridor, is moving and has been for decades. Texas sits above a geological formation prone to compaction. As groundwater is extracted from aquifer layers beneath East Texas, the sediment above slowly collapses inward, dropping the surface in increments too small to feel but large enough to matter enormously. This is regional land subsidence, and the Houston area already holds the grim distinction of being one of the most severely subsided urban landscapes in the United States. What makes this geographic context alarming is what sits directly above that subsiding ground, a hurricane corridor. In August 2017, Hurricane Harvey stalled over southeast Texas and released 51 inches of rain in 4 days, the highest recorded rainfall total from a tropical cyclone in U.S. history. Harvey did not clip the region, it parked over it. The Trinity River watershed absorbed that volume and translated it directly into flow surge. Now consider that Livingston Dam sits at the convergence of 3 independent threat vectors: ground movement driven by subsidence, storm intensity amplified by a warming Gulf of Mexico, and aging infrastructure carrying differential stress already documented by satellite. Each factor in isolation is manageable. Engineers plan for single variable risk. They build margins, set thresholds, run scenarios. What they have far less experience managing is the compounding case, where the ground beneath a dam is sinking at the same moment the embankment is tilting and the rainfall events feeding its watershed are intensifying in both frequency and scale. That convergence is not theoretical. It is the operational condition Livingston Dam already occupies. The problem is that none of those threats has a backup. Engineers would never design it that way, except that is precisely the architecture Houston's drinking water runs on. Lake Livingston and its 2 downstream purification plants, the east and southeast facilities, handle roughly 806 million gallons per day. That is not a number with a parallel. Nothing else comes close at equivalent scale feeding those same plants. What happens if that supply is interrupted? The honest answer, based on Trinity River Authority public documents, is that no alternative supply plan at comparable capacity has been named. The infrastructure gap is not a rumor. It is simply visible in the absence of any public record describing how Houston gets water if Livingston is suddenly unavailable. And the scale is the reason. Designing redundancy for a system this large is not a straightforward engineering problem. A secondary reservoir of equivalent depth and watershed feeding the same plants would require decades of planning, billions in capital, and political alignment across multiple state agencies. The Trinity River Authority is a revenue bond institution. It does not tax, it does not command federal emergency infrastructure dollars by default, and it operates within a governance structure that does not easily absorb a project of that scope without explicit legislative mandate. But here is the thing, the absence of a backup plan does not mean no one has noticed the gap. It means the gap is large enough that every agency with the authority to close it has declined to put a solution in writing. Here is the question. None of the engineers want to answer out loud what actually happens if the embankment goes. Oroville Dam in California, February 2017. The main structure never failed, just the spillway eroded and partially collapsed. That was enough. Within hours, 88,000 people were ordered to evacuate the communities downstream. Roads locked up, shelters overwhelmed. And Oroville was a concrete-faced structure with alternative water sources nearby. Livingston is an earthfill embankment, and what sits downstream is not a rural valley. It is the greater Houston metro. ASCE dam failure case studies are consistent on one point. Embankment breaches do not announce themselves. Internal piping accelerates silently until the downstream face slumps, and by the time visible collapse begins, the window for controlled response has already closed. Partial breach on Livingston's northern section, the section already sinking, would send an uncontrolled surge down the Trinity River flood corridor, inundating communities that sit directly in that path with virtually zero warning time at scale. But the water loss is actually the slower disaster. The immediate flood is the acute event. The supply collapse is the chronic one. 3 million people losing their primary drinking water source have nowhere to pivot. Bottled water logistics for a metro that size collapses within days. Emergency interconnects at anything approaching 806 million gallons daily simply do not exist. Houston's 2 purification plants go offline, and the city enters a water emergency with no defined endpoint. That is not speculation drawn from worst-case modeling. That is the straightforward consequence of a single-source system with no named alternative. A preliminary satellite study published in early 2026 has placed Livingston Dam on a documented risk register. The movement is measured. The differential is real. The single-source dependency is a matter of public infrastructure record. And as of this moment, no federal agency has designated the structure an emergency. No publicly named remediation program exists. The Trinity River Authority has not announced a repair timeline tied to the satellite finding. There is no alternative supply project on paper at a scale that would actually matter. And the record is what makes this so difficult to resolve. Because the problem is not that the engineers missed something obvious. The problem is that what they are looking at is genuinely hard. Differential movement across a 2.5-mile earthfill embankment, driven by subsidence geology that predates the dam itself, compounded by storm intensity that is measurably increasing. That is a convergence without a clean engineering answer sitting on a shelf somewhere waiting to be approved. But the absence of a named plan is itself a decision. Every month, the study window stays open without a public remediation commitment is a month the structure continues moving and the city continues depending on it entirely. That combination is either a problem someone is quietly solving or an open question that nobody with the authority to act has yet been willing to put their name on. Right now, it is the second one, and that is exactly where this story stands. The dam is still standing. One end sinking, one end rising. 3 million people balanced on that 8-millimeter annual gap. Until those answers arrive, Houston's water supply rests on a structure that satellites are watching more closely than any agency currently is.